On the freezing night of January 1st, 2026, the world stepped into a new year filled with hope. Yet within the pages of history, a story long asleep was awakening. Most believe history lives in books, but the truth is real. History is always buried in darkness. Today I am telling you a story never taught in schools, never discussed in universities, and rarely spoken of by historians. This is a tale of power, fear, deception, and a secret so profound that it altered the direction of entire empires. In 1897, in a remote region of the subcontinent where mountains touched the sky and nights were unnaturally silent, a senior British officer wrote a single line in his diary: "If this secret becomes public, not only the government, but history itself will be ashamed." That sentence remains locked inside a secret London archive to this day. Strangely, every page of the diary exists except for 7. Those pages were never recovered, and they were no ordinary missing pages. Those missing pages described an expedition where dozens of soldiers died without battle, an entire caravan vanished, without a trace, and a local king threw himself from the palace's highest tower just 3 days after his coronation. Official records labeled the incident an accident, but the palace, Cook's dying words changed everything. In a trembling voice, he whispered, "The king was terrified. He kept saying that thing had awakened." The question was, what was that thing? This was an era when the British Empire was the most powerful on earth. They had armies, weapons, and laws, yet officers began refusing to enter that particular region. Strangely, officers who returned never lived long. Some died of sudden fevers, others lost their sanity, and some vanished without a sound, as if the earth itself had swallowed them whole. Locals whispered a name, one so terrifying they trembled even speaking. They claimed the secret predated the Mughals, perhaps reaching back to the time of Alexander the Great or even earlier. Some believed it was forbidden knowledge. Others called it a curse, and some insisted it was a truth humanity was never meant to understand. These war conflicting beliefs only made the secret far more dangerous. In 1902, a French archaeologist, Jean-Luc Martin, became obsessed with reaching the region. He claimed that if history contained a missing chapter anywhere, it was here, and he was determined to witness it. With his own eyes, he wrote in his diary, "If history has a gap, it is here." Those were his words. No one imagined that this gap would consume him alive, leaving no clear path back to the world he came from. 3 months later, his body was found beside a river. His eyes were wide open, as if he had seen something before death, something that would not let him live, yet refused to let him die peacefully. These events were not isolated. They converged at a single point: a forbidden place, concealed knowledge, and one decision that reshaped the next 100 years of politics, wars, and national borders. And the most dangerous truth was this: the secret was never fully buried. Time passed, empires fell, yet that presence still exists somewhere, silent, waiting, and very much awake. After Jean-Luc Martin's death, the British government erased the entire region from public site official maps, labeled it as barren land, stating there was nothing of importance there, yet the reality was the complete opposite. In that supposedly silent land, torches glowed at night, chants echoed in unfamiliar tongues, and at times sounds rose from the mountains like an ancient wound tearing itself open once again. In 1911, a new figure entered the story: Captain Edward Holmes. He was no ordinary officer. His duty was not to fight, but to bury secrets assigned only to missions, meant to leave no questions behind. When given command of the region, Holmes wrote in a letter, "This is not a war. It is a matter of awakening something or putting it back to sleep." His words revealed both fear and burden. Holmes met the tribal elders. They all agreed on one truth: this place was not meant for humans. They spoke of an ancient story one bound to power, greed, and an ending too terrible to describe. The elders explained that centuries ago, a king driven by greed for power tried to uncover the secret. He spent only one night there, and by morning, his beard had turned white, his eyes were blind, and his tongue was gone. The king died 3 days later. Before his death, he spoke only one sentence repeated for generations: "Do not call it by its name." Those words became both a warning and a terrifying final command. The most terrifying detail was this: no one ever spoke the full name of the secret. Everyone stopped midway, fearing that completing it might break something or awaken something that could never be put back to sleep. At the same time, a map hidden in London's secret archives resurfaced. It appeared ordinary, but under ultraviolet light, a hidden symbol emerged pointing directly to the very same forbidden location. Along the map's edge, a sentence was written in Latin: "Veritas non vult lucem." Translated, it meant truth does not want light. In silence, the phrase revealed the true nature of the secret. Defying orders, Captain Holmes decided to go to the forbidden place himself. He chose only 7 men, each experienced, each silent, and each someone whose name was never meant to appear in any official history. The night before departure, Holmes made a final diary entry. He wrote that if he did not return it, should be understood that some truths do not allow a human being to come back alive. As the convoy entered the mountains, compasses stopped working. Watches froze in place. Most disturbing of all, the silence itself began to roar, as if the air had found a voice of its own. The soldiers began to feel watched. In every direction, there were only rocks, mist, and silence, yet their pounding hearts told them they were not alone, and with every step that feeling grew stronger. On the first night, someone screamed in their sleep. On the second, a soldier vanished without a sound. And on the third night, a moment arrived that erased this mission from history forever. On the third night, Holmes saw something that never appeared in any report, file, or official statement. It was a sight impossible to imprison in words, which is why history chose to bury it in permanent silence. What was it? Some called it a place. Others believed it was a message. And some said it was a truth that, once seen with human eyes permanently, changes something deep inside a person. That was the moment when history began to change its course. Decisions shifted. Into closed rooms, maps were quietly redrawn, and the truth witnessed, there started steering the direction of the world. No official record remained of Captain Holmes or his 7 men. There was no return log, no deaths recorded as. But the story does not end here. What was seen there still echoes today, reminding us that some secrets do not die with time, they simply wait. After the third night, Captain Edward Holmes realized something unsettling. They were no longer inside a place, but inside a boundary. This boundary did not lie between earth and sky. It existed between human reason and pure fear. At dawn, Holmes counted his men. Only 5 remained. There were no signs of struggle, no blood, no footprints, just 2 empty beds, as if those men had never existed there at all. That same morning, they discovered a stone door carved into the mountain. There were no decorations. Only a single straight line, and beneath it a symbol that triggered an immediate sense of unease. The tribal elders had warned them after seeing that symbol. This mark is not a path, they said, it is a warning. The words echoed in Holmes's mind, yet he refused to stop. Holmes ordered the door to be opened. As the stone shifted, a blast of cold air escaped, carrying the scent of earth, metal, and something ancient, as if time itself had begun to breathe. Inside there was darkness that seemed to swallow even torchlight. Writings covered the walls, but not in one language. Some were Persian, some Greek, and others symbols that belonged to no known tongue. One soldier spoke without thinking, asking, "Why is all of this together?" Holmes gave no answer because the same question was tearing at him from the inside. As they moved deeper, the space felt tighter. The paths grew longer, yet the destination never seemed closer, as if this place was measuring patience, not distance. They then found a room perfectly circular, perfectly silent. At its center stood a stone platform, and upon it rested a sealed chest. There was no lock yet. No one dared to open it. As Holmes stepped forward, visions flooded his mind, wars yet to be fought, borders already changed, and cities burning in flames, as if the future itself had revealed its consequences. Holmes felt as if the chest was not showing time, but consequences, outcomes of decisions not yet made already existed, unfolding before him in a single overwhelming moment. One soldier screamed and collapsed to his knees. He kept repeating the same sentence again and again, as if those words were holding his sanity together or desperately trying to. "We should not have seen this. We should not have seen this." His voice echoed through the chamber, and with every echo, Holmes felt the certainty growing they had crossed a point of no return. Holmes finally understood this place was not meant to grant power, but to choose. Anyone who came here could return, but never as the same person they once were. At that moment, Holmes noticed a sentence carved along the chest's edge, different from all the other writings. It was written in clear English, as if it had been left specifically for him. The sentence read, "Only one will decide." Those words were not a command, but a burden, suddenly placed on Holmes alone, as if this moment had been waiting for him specifically. The questions were overwhelming. What was the decision? Who was it about? And why had empires across centuries hidden this place from the world, as if witnessing the truth itself was a crime? Holmes slowly reached forward. His heart raced, knowing this single movement could redefine knowledge, power, and even what it meant to be human. At that exact moment, thunder roared outside the mountains, as if the earth itself had issued a warning. The rocks trembled, and everyone inside knew there was no turning back now. This was the point where the path of return began to close, and the real game was born. What followed would decide not just Holmes's fate, but the future of the world itself. After the thunder, absolute silence followed. A silence so deep that even breathing felt loud. Captain Holmes's hand froze above the chest, and he understood this was no ordinary decision. It was a moment history had been waiting for. This was the turning point where one man's will collided with centuries of planning. At that moment, the carved writings on the walls began to glow without fire, without light, as if memories themselves were burning in the dark. The soldiers felt the walls were not stone, but witnesses to all who came here and never returned. Between the writings, a vision emerged, not an image, but a memory taking taking shape. An ancient council appeared, Romans, Persians, Greeks, and others beyond recognition. Before them stood the same chest. In every era, one person was chosen to decide. Now Holmes understood everything. The secret did not belong to one empire. It was a pact created to contain power, not to share it. One soldier, silent until now, suddenly spoke. Fear echoed in his voice. He said softly, "Sir, this place is watching us as if they were inside it, not standing before it." Holmes looked at him in confusion. The soldier raised a shaking finger to his chest and said, "It's not outside, it's inside," like a thought that had finally gained weight. That's when Holmes realized the chest was never locked. It was waiting. It opened only when someone was ready to pay the price, not of life, but of identity. Whoever decided would lose their name in history, but change history itself. At that moment, footsteps echoed from outside. It was impossible. No one else should have been in this valley. The footsteps drew closer, then stopped at the doorway. The shadow took no shape, made no sound. Yet a cold, clear sentence echoed inside Holmes's mind. The sentence arrived without sound, yet its echo reached the bones. The words were cold and final, as if the decision had already been written and was now simply being read aloud. "You are late, but there is still time." Holmes realized these words were not a question. They were a reminder, pushing him toward an ending already waiting. Time for what decision or sacrifice? The sentence reappeared on the chest, clearer and closer, as if it was no longer speaking to everyone, only to Holmes. Only one will decide. This time it was clear who that one was. The others were merely witnesses or sacrifices. Holmes' hand trembled, but retreat was no longer possible. But before deciding, Holmes saw something beyond the shadow, something that tied this secret, not just to the past, but to the future. And there the story took a new turn. The shadow's words echoed inside Holmes's mind, yet his lips remained still. He had seen many wars and made deadly choices before, but for the first time, he realized the true battle was not fought with weapons, but with will. The shadow stood motionless at the doorway, as if time itself awaited its command. "It is time," the words echoed again, carrying not urgency, but the weight of an ending. The glowing writings on the walls became clear. As Holmes stepped closer, he realized they were not languages, but eras, rises, collapses, and paths that could still be chosen. One soldier collapsed to the ground. Tears streamed down his face, yet there was no fear, only calm. He said they were not here to witness history, but to stop something from continuing. The shadow moved for the first time. The room grew heavy, as if Holmes's past stood before him. Then a calm, ancient voice spoke. "Power does not change people. It only reveals who they truly are." A thin crack appeared along the edge of the chest. No light escaped, no sound followed. Yet Holmes knew that if it opened even once, the world he understood would never be the same again. At that moment, a thought struck Holmes. If this secret was so dangerous, why did someone come here in every era? Who was it in every century who carried the burden of this decision? The most important question followed. If Holmes refused this time, who would be chosen next? Could this cycle ever end, or had humanity already become part of it? The writings on the walls began to pulse together like a racing heartbeat. The chamber itself seemed to breathe, and time felt as if it had lost its normal flow. The shadow spoke its final line, not a question, but a warning. Not choosing is also a choice, and there the story touched a line beyond which no one remains merely a spectator. The chamber's walls pulsed faster, as if time itself was breathing. For the first time, Holmes turned to look at his remaining soldiers. They were no longer soldiers. They had become witnesses. Each man carried a different question in his eyes, but the same fear in his heart. If this secret were released today, what would the world look like tomorrow, and could anyone stop it again? Holmes slowly pulled his hand back. There was no weakness. In the motion, no rebellion, only the understanding of a man who had recognized the true consequence. "I will not decide," he said. His voice was neither loud nor weak. It carried acceptance. At that moment, every glowing inscription on the walls went dark. The shadow froze, and for the first time, the ancient place reacted. The ground trembled, not like destruction, but like closure, as if a door was being sealed after centuries. Amid the trembling ground, a deep voice echoed. It carried no anger, only certainty. It declared that if Holmes would not pay the price, then someone else somewhere would bear the burden. In that moment, Holmes understood the truth. The real test was never about making the decision, it was about carrying responsibility, and by refusing, he had passed it on to another. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. The crushing weight began to lift, and as the trembling stopped, a stone passage revealed itself, the path back opening on its own. The same door that was once invisible now stood open. The group exited in silence, but the mountain air had changed, as if time had moved forward without them. They soon realized that time had passed, not days or months, but years. The world had moved on, and they returned carrying a secret that was still alive. The path back had revealed itself. The same stone door, once invisible, now stood open, as if the place itself wanted them to leave and never look back again. As the group stepped outside, the mountain air felt different. The light had changed. The silence felt heavier, as if time had passed. Without waiting for them, soon the truth became clear. Time had passed, not in days or months, but in years. The world had moved on while they returned from a moment history never witnessed. Back in London, Holmes wrote his report. He mentioned neither the chest dust, nor the shadow, nor the voice. He wrote only one sentence enough to conceal everything. This place was not buried, it was preserved. Days later, the report vanished from official records. That same night, Captain Edward Holmes quietly retired. But the story did not end there. In 1939, just before another Great War, a young officer noticed the same mysterious symbol on an old map, one history had tried repeatedly to erase. In 1962, at the height of the Cold War, a scientist read the same sentence in a forgotten text. The words were simple, yet their weight felt equal to the world itself. Only one will decide. The secret remained silent, but it was not dead. It traveled through time-changing forms, searching for someone in every era. Today, January 1st, 2026, the same symbol has appeared again, not on a mountain or in a palace, but in a place where no one would ever expect it. Before his death, Holmes wrote that they had saved the world, but not forever. Perhaps every era needs a Holmes because power never arrives on its own. We are the ones who invite it.